see that the Senate floor has come back from break and they have reconvened. Let's listen in now, live, raw, and unfiltered.
Citizens, thousands of pounds of fentanyl and millions of illegal immigrants, including more than 150 on the terror watch list, have poured over our southern border and into our communities. This immigration crisis is so bad that the Biden administration has resorted to building migrant shelters in our national parks and waiving environmental laws to do it. This has to stop. The choices are clear. The conservative solution will avoid a government shutdown, secure our borders, and will keep us on track to restore fiscal sanity. A vote against this bill, let me be clear, a vote against this bill is a vote to continue down the path of out-of-control spending, to keep our borders open, and to shut down the government. I've made my choice to vote yes, and I encourage others to do the same, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Florida reserves.
I reserve. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentlewoman from Connecticut is recognized.
I'll just take 1 second to tell the gentleman from Arkansas that with this bill, you will cut 1,460 teachers from your district, and almost 46,000 households will be terminated with their low-income energy assistance benefits. With that, let me yield 2 minutes to the gentlewoman from Florida, the distinguished ranking member of the Military Construction and Veterans Affairs Subcommittee, Ms. Wasserman Schultz.
How long?
2 minutes, I'm sorry.
The gentlewoman is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the gentlewoman for yielding. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I rise in opposition to this so-called CR, which is a MAGA gift basket to far-right extremists. Let's first address the reality. The gutting cuts in this bill do not continue current funding like we've historically done in continuing resolutions. Instead, this so-called CR slashes cancer and Alzheimer's research, defunds the police, undercuts allies like Israel and Ukraine. Republicans claim to care about our borders, but this invites more immigration problems. Instead of giving migrants a path to work and pay taxes, it leaves them to languish in substandard private prisons. This grab bag of budgetary garbage stands no chance of becoming law and just slingshots into a shutdown in 36 hours. A shutdown that harms everyone, from seniors and service members to this nation's most vulnerable and its very security. It snarls small business loans and trade, delays home loans, and could force federal contractors into layoffs. It's a MAGA recipe for more chaos and inflation, and my home state of Florida will feel it first. The longer it drags, the deeper the airport lines will get as TSA agents and air traffic controllers go without pay and passport processing slows down. Worse, it actually makes our military serve without pay. Don't forget, in the 2019 GOP shutdown, they forced Coast Guard members into food banks. That does not make America stronger. Instead of making communities less safe and handcuffing FEMA's recovery responsiveness, which this CR does, why don't Republicans join Democrats to fight Big Pharma and keep lowering drug prices like insulin? Instead of a shutdown that closes Social Security field offices, which this CR does, and takes food from the mouths of children, why won't Republicans join Democrats to bolster education, health care, and climate investments like Americans want? Why? Because MAGA extremists don't want to make life better for all Americans. They want to inflict pain on their own leadership, on our government, and on the American people. Why? Because it covers up their lack of an agenda, it excites their base, and throws gas on their bonfires of distraction and chaos. America deserves better than that, and so does this institution. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlewoman, time has expired. The gentlewoman from Connecticut reserves.
Yes.
The gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a privilege to yield to the gentleman from Texas, the chairman of the Committee on the Budget, Mr. Arrington, for 2 minutes.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, policies have consequences. Over the last 2 years, we've seen a string of self-inflicted crises because of the policies of my Democrat colleagues and this president. Let me give you 2 examples. $11 trillion over 2 years from my Democrat colleagues, $6 trillion of which went to the national debt, all of which lit the fuse on this inflation firestorm, this cost of living crisis that is punishing working families from coast to coast. We've got to stop the spending that's bankrupting this great country of ours. This president's dereliction of duty to uphold the laws of the land, his failure to provide for a common defense, to defend our sovereign borders, and to put the safety and security of the American people first, has created an unmitigated and unprecedented crisis at the border, where we are being flooded with criminal activity and drugs that are killing people, 300 a day, leading cause of death in the United States. I got a plan. We have a plan. And my Democrat colleagues are going to have to respond to that. We're going to fund the government, keep it open. But we're going to give you measures to secure the border and prioritize the safety of the American people. And we're going to reduce the spending. We're going to save this country and our children's future while we're at it, because that's the responsible thing to do, not only for our country and our citizens of our country, but future generations of Americans who will inherit the whirlwind if we don't start reining in this wasteful Washington spending. So I rise in support of the Republican funding bill, and I ask my colleagues to do the same.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Florida reserves. The gentlewoman from Connecticut is recognized.
I would just like to take a few seconds here to let the gentleman from Texas know that the state of Texas will lose almost 14,000 teachers. It's going to be really tough to explain that to families when their children do not have a teacher in the classroom. In addition to that, almost 77,000 Texans will lose their low-income energy assistance benefits or have those benefits cut. It's going to be a tough time for folks come the cooler months or the warmer months for them to take advantage of this. So I think people need to be mindful of the consequences of a 30% cut, or in the case of LIHEAP, a 74% cut that they are proposing here today. That, Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentlewoman from Illinois, Mrs. Ramirez.
The gentlewoman from Illinois is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Ranking Member, and thank you, Speaker. I cannot believe that I'm standing here again, having to remind my colleagues that we are a nation of immigrants. But you know what? I'm going to come to this podium each time my Republican colleagues have amnesia about where their families come from or try to scapegoat the immigrant community. Introducing a continuing resolution that cuts services and deports unaccompanied children, ending asylum and jailing families, betrays a truth about my colleagues. They are more willing to scapegoat and sacrifice the well-being of immigrants, children that they say they care so much, babies that they say they care so much about, veterans, the elderly, and people experiencing poverty, that they are to do the hard work of owning up to their failures, their hypocrisy, their ineffective leadership. To me, it is hypocritical to target immigrants when many of the people in this chamber have reaped the benefits of immigrant labor and have become wealthy on the backs of immigrant sacrifice. Let me tell you, because my mother tells me about her journey, it takes courage to cross the border, to seek a job, or to pursue an opportunity to raise your children in safety. The courage of our people stands in stark contrast to the cowardice of my colleagues. There's nothing people-centered about this Republican CR. There's nothing noble or redeeming about it. It's time for a clean CR that does not scapegoat the people this nation has been built on. And let's stop indulging on the cowardice of my colleagues. And for this reason, Speaker, at the appropriate time, I will offer a motion to recommit this bill back to committee. And if the House rules permitted, I would have offered the motion with an important amendment to my bill. That amendment would strike the section that makes 30% cuts across the board. I ask unanimous consent to enter the record unto the amendment.
The gentlewoman's time has expired.
And I hope my colleagues will join me. I yield back.
Without objection, the request is granted. Reserve. Woman from Connecticut reserves. The gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would remind my colleagues in the House and the American people that just last year, 900 immigrants died trying to cross the border. That is not humane. That is insane. And that we are not willing to look away and tolerate in the name of what? No, that is what is intolerable. And I will not be lectured, Mr. Speaker, when 900 migrants died trying to get to the United States, and when there are thousands of children who are now missing that were supposed to be taken care of by the United States federal government, you don't hear about that. That is not humane. This legislation puts an end to that insanity. Mr. Speaker, I now am honored to yield to the gentleman from Ohio, the chairman of the Committee on Judiciary, Mr. Jordan, for 2 minutes.
I think the gentleman from Ohio is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentleman for yielding. Look, the fiscal year ends in 36 hours. This bill funds the government. We have a $2 trillion deficit, $33 trillion debt. This bill cuts spending. We have a border that's wide open. This bill secures the border. 3 simple, common sense things. But the most important of those 3 is the one that Mr. Diaz-Balart was just talking about, the border situation. 2021 was the highest number on record for illegal migrants entering the year. Highest year on record until 2022. And that was the highest year on record until this year. That's how bad this is. And here's the important point. It's not just conservatives. It's not just Republicans talking about securing the border. The mayor of New York said the migrant, quote, the migrant crisis will destroy New York City. Everyone in the country knows what needs to be done. This bill does it in a common sense way, reasonable cuts in spending to deal with the huge deficit we got, but most importantly, addresses the most pressing issue we have. The most pressing issue in the country today is the border situation. And everyone in the country knows it, it seems, except Democrats in the United States Congress. I urge a yes vote.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Florida reserves. The gentlewoman from Connecticut is recognized.
I would just take a second to let the gentleman from Ohio know that 232,000 people in Ohio will be without low-income energy assistance benefits. And further, there will be 5,500 teachers who will be pulled out of classrooms, and the families in both instances will suffer while the gentleman talks about issues that are not truly affecting what is happening in the everyday lives of the people that he represents. And with that, let me yield to 2 minutes to the gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Jackson Lee.
The gentlewoman from Texas is recognized for 2 minutes.
Let me take a moment to offer my deepest sympathy to the people of California, her family, and the people of this nation for the passing of Senator Feinstein. This is a serious moment in history. This is a serious moment for patriots and persons courageous enough to do the right thing. I started out this morning by saying it will be the American people that will suffer, but it'll be my neighbors in Houston and my fellow Texans. We have a solution, and I think it should be very clearly stated. What my friends on the other side of the aisle are arguing, they're arguing chaos and confusion. They're arguing no solution. They're shouting from the top of their lungs to be heard and to generate excitement and social media. But we have a very calm solution. The Senate has voted 77-19 to put forward a reasoned extension, keeping the funding as it is, making sure our military is being paid, not cutting off women and children from supplemental nutrition. These are infants we're talking about. And taking care of communities like the firefighters in the West who are suffering after fighting fires and other natural disasters. They have a CR. It will come here. It has a privileged status. That status will allow us to vote. The government will be open, and then the engagement on issues that are in disagreement or agreement could be worked. But if we continue this shrill talk and don't reasonably act courageously as patriots and to be able to stop the suffering of the American people, we'll have 50,000 pounds of cocaine because we won't have Customs and Border officers.
The gentlewoman is recognized for an additional 30 seconds.
We'll have 110,000 of your children where parents are going to work will have no Head Start slots. 65,000 children will not have access to child care. 60,000 seniors will be robbed of nutrition programs. Then we'll have 2.3 million women and infant and children, as I said, without WIC. No educational dollars, fewer teachers, 4,000 fewer safety inspections, and we will be undermining law enforcement. So if anyone wants to be shrill, here's a solution. Bring the temperature down, pass the Senate CR, open the doors, and stop these draconian cuts because you're hurting the American people and my fellow Houstonians. I yield back.
Time has expired. The gentlewoman from Connecticut reserves. The gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll remind everyone what we're talking about today. This keeps the government open, it secures the border, and it, frankly, reduces wasteful spending. That's what we're dealing with here. It is a real pleasure to now yield to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Roy, 2 minutes.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank my friend from Florida. I rise in support of this legislation, strongly in support of this legislation. This is legislation that will make sure our troops are paid. It will make sure that our military can continue to do its job. It will make sure that our border is secured, and it will simply return funding to the federal bureaucracy to pre-COVID levels. That's what we're talking about here. That's what my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are so up in arms about, that we must have a bureaucracy bloated with massive expenditures in a post-COVID universe, or your life as you know it is going to end. When the Declaration of Independence was written, when our unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness were drafted, those rights did not emanate from this floor. That pursuit of happiness did not come from this floor or anywhere in this building, because this building didn't exist. It didn't come from Congress because Congress didn't exist. The fact is that no matter what happens heading into this weekend, whatever the result, there are 50 state governments that are continuing to operate. There are 3,000 county governments operating. There are 20,000 city and municipalities with governments operating, 12,000 independent school districts, because we have a federal system of government. And we are supposed to take care of ourselves and our families and our communities. We are not supposed to bankrupt our country and to devalue the dollar and to drive up inflation such that the American people can no longer afford to live. And that is what my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are doing with blank checks, with more borrowing, more taxing, more spending, destroying the future of this country. That stops now. We stand up on this side of the aisle for sanity and a secure border. I support this legislation, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
I reserve, Mr.
The gentleman from Florida reserves. The gentlewoman from Connecticut is recognized.
I find it hard to believe that the gentleman from Texas.
If you're just now tuning into Live Now from Fox, on your screen, we are live in Washington, D.C. As the House floor is convened, they're discussing several key items ranging from the potential government shutdown to even fentanyl and border security. That right box live in New York, we are following New York flooding. You can see cars stuck and other cars trying to maneuver around. And just popping up on our screen, the White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, she is giving the latest with the White House press briefing. We're going to take that now for you. Live, raw, and unfiltered.
Clear that we have no higher priority than securing the release of Evan, Paul Whelan, and all Americans wrongfully detained abroad. Once again, we call for Russia to immediately release Evan and also to release wrongfully detained U.S. citizen Paul Whelan. Our efforts to secure their release are ongoing, and we will not stop until they are home. I also want to take a minute to echo the President's sentiments on the legacy of Senator Dianne Feinstein. She was a history maker, history-making trailblazer who dedicated her life to the people of California for over half a century. From the city of San Francisco to the halls of Congress, Senator Feinstein turned her passion into purpose to benefit the lives of all Americans. As the president said, he had his own close relationship with the senator, forged over 15 years together in the Senate, and she was a cherished friend. And finally, before I do turn it over to our guests, I wanted to make one more thing very clear, which we have been doing as an administration from here for the past couple of days. Now, as you all know, extreme House Republicans are solely to blame for marching us toward a shutdown. That is what we're seeing right now. It is a basic fact, and one that many of you have already reported. I know how much you all love when I quote folks, so here we go. Politico wrote, and quote, Speaker Kevin McCarthy's choice to go back on the deal he made with President is about to plunge the federal government into chaos, end quote. Punchbowl says, and I quote, McCarthy is the only congressional principal no longer abiding by the agreement, end quote. Washington Post writes, quote, of course, Biden has played no role in bringing Congress to the brink of a shutdown, end quote. And it's not just what you all are reporting, it's also what Republicans are saying themselves. Leader McConnell said, and I quote, shutting down the government is a choice, and it's a choice that would make the crisis at our southern border even worse, end quote. Speaker McCarthy said, some individuals, quote, just want to burn the whole place down, end quote. Representative Garrett Graves said, the arsonists have lit their house on fire. Representative Matt Gaetz said, we will have a government shutdown, and we cannot blame Joe Biden. We cannot blame House Democrats. Representatives George Santos and Ralph Norman admitted and saying, shut it down. Those are their words. But no one can explain what House Republicans are shutting down the government over. It's a serious question, and they don't have a good answer for it. As Newt Gingrich said, and I quote, I frankly don't understand it. I think it's sort of nuts. There are times people vote yes one day, and then they come back and vote no the next day, and can't explain why they switched, end quote. So we're here today facing a possible shutdown.
If you're just now tuning into Live Now from Fox, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre giving the latest White House press briefing. Off the top, she did acknowledge the passing of Senator Dianne Feinstein. She passed away this morning at the age of 90.